Welcome to Yoga Hype and History. Today I'm going to actually be using an older video that I made that I teach in a lot of my classes that goes over what are called the satkarmon, which are the 6 magical acts that are about magic rituals as they are found in the tantras and they're found sort of throughout Indic culture. And there's a reason for me teaching this in a yoga class that I'll get to in this short presentation I'm going to give. But it's my obsession. This is what I wrote my PhD dissertation on. It's what I'm constantly reading about in Sanskrit texts. Very few of these texts have been translated, so I get the pleasure of looking at stuff that very few Westerners have ever looked at. So without further ado, let's talk about what is Tantra and what is magic. And after that, you're going to watch the video that I recorded, and you'll do your activity after that. Also, be very aware. Look at the assignments before you watch the video and before you do the reading. Trust me, it's important. Okay, I'll talk to you right now. Okay, so what is Tantra? Tantra is kind of a funny word. We have a notion of what is Tantra. When we hear Tantra, we think it's like sexual rituals or sensual massage or sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's something somewhat related to that, but it's not that. And it's not neo-tantra, which is what we see in the West. When you hear people talking about tantra, they're generally talking about a sort of like sexual massage or empowered sacred sexuality, which is fine and good. It just has nothing to do with India. And it really comes out of the United States and Europe in the 20th century. So the Sanskrit root tan, from which we get tantra, merely means to weave. So possibly a thing that weaves the universe together, but we don't really have a satisfying sort of translation that really sticks to that Sanskrit root of tan, to weave. Now in folk etymology, and I've heard this quite a few times over the years, tantra, they say, relates to the word body or tanu. It doesn't, but that's beside the point. Plus the word tra, or plus the letters tra, which means a thing that does something or a thing that protects something. So a thing that protects the body, or a thing that builds up the body, or uses the body even. So by this same folk etymology, mantra would be a thing that protects the manas, the mind. Again, those are not real etymologies, but people say them. So what Tantra is, as I look at it and read through a lot of these sources, is it's a shift in ritual. So we saw in Vedic culture that there was sort of rituals for everything in the earliest of Sanskrit sources. But we see in the Tantras that there are even more rituals for everything. And the texts that I'm going to be talking about in the other lecture today are magical texts that are texts that catalog magical rituals, which is pragmatic ritual technologies. Rituals that change the world in a discernible way. They do not confer salvation. They cause your enemy to run away from you. They cause very specific results in the world. But the ritual shift in Tantra, as opposed to other sort of other things, sort of even like yoga, Tantra and yoga are different because Tantra is so ritualized. So it's ritual worship of deities, rituals that cause changes in the world, rituals that affect salvation. But the thing about Tantra is it's always really ritual. And actually, when you hear people talking about Tantra being a state of mind, they're kind of missing it. That state of mind is a ritual state of mind. One way to think about it is, yes, there is sex in some, not a lot, but some tantric rituals. But it is not a ritualization of sex. It is a sexualization of ritual. It's as if Indic rituals are being acted out through bodies engaging in sexuality. So a penis becomes a ladle, the offering becomes semen, the vagina becomes the fire that it's being offered into. So it's not a ritualization of sex. It's a sexually enacted way of performing rituals. One way I like to think of Tantra is it's occultism, and you've heard me use this term a lot. What does occult mean? The occluded, the hidden, the secret. Tantra is very much about secrecy. All right, so moving on. So Tantra and Gnosis. I've said this word Gnosis a bunch of times in the class. Gnosis means Gnostic revelation. We've said that most Indian sort of philosophies are gnosiologies. They cause salvation through Gnosis. So Gnosis is a change of the mind, or a way that the mind is able to change to see through reality and see the truth. So in Tantra, there is a big difference from Advaita Vedanta. There is a realization that the world is in essence divine, the divine in worldly form. It's not illusion. The world is not illusory. All of this world is Shiva, for instance, and Shiva is consciousness. All of this world is consciousness interacting with itself. So in Tantra, you can do rituals where you visualize yourself as a deity. Sometimes you'll even bring the deity into you and perform rituals, and you will act as the deity in the ritual. So deities are able to be found in the body, in the self, and we can identify and become those deities. Now, it's not that Dr. Ulrey, the petty, angry man with a flat tire this morning, becomes the god. It is that this essential, glorious, luminous thing that is my pure consciousness can become God, or maybe already is God in the first place. So one thing that people talk about with Tantra, it's the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. They talk about a thing called the 5 M's. The 5 M's are 5 substances that are considered taboo. They are meat, they are fish, they are sexual intercourse, they are liquor, and they are specific types of food that they call mudra. Don't worry about it. Anyway, so a lot of people have said that Tantra is about consuming these substances that are considered impure, but they're not really impure. They're powerful. So if you're a Brahmin, you don't want to eat meat, you don't want to drink liquor, you don't want to do any of those things because they make you impure. But if you're a Kshatriya, if you're a warrior, drinking liquor is fine, having sex is fine. But what it is these things are powerful. So Tantra finds a way to harness anything that it comes across towards the ends of transforming the self and the world or gaining spiritual perfections. So really, it's less about violating purity laws, and it's more about interacting with powerful substances. And of course, if you're building a culture, powerful substances are going to be considered dangerous and thereby are going to be made taboo. One thing I like to think about is in Advaita Vedanta, they say you look at the world and it's like you look out in the darkness and you see a snake on the ground. You shriek back and go, oh my goodness, it's a snake. And then somebody comes by and holds up and says, no, it's a rope. So that's the thing. You're looking at the world. You think you're stuck in the world. The world is tricky. It's a snake. It's really scary. And then the guru looks at you and says, it's just a rope. And then you look, where did the snake go? Where did the illusion go? And you've seen through the illusion what's left, just the rope that cannot hurt you. Well, in Tantra, and this is my argument, you look at a rope and it's actually a snake. So you look at the world and you think it's just something simple, but it's actually the very body of God. And Tantra is secret wisdom. It's wisdom that's not easily accessed. Yes, there are Tantric texts. Now they've been published. They're even still hard to get a hold of in published forms. They're written in a very difficult to understand Sanskrit. They often have purposeful errors in the text that you have to think through as a reader. But the key is Tantra is secret wisdom. And I'll talk to you in a second about how you get that secret wisdom. But ultimately, what a lot of Tantra, when they start talking about, and Tantric authors start talking about sort of the nature of reality and the nature of the human experience, they argue that they can cause liberation in one lifetime. It's not a million lifetimes of doing spiritual practice or 10 lifetimes. It's you can get liberated while alive or immediately after death via Tantra and via Tantra ritual. Okay. So Tantra and ritual. Now, Tantra will argue that Gnosis cannot cause salvation. So we are stuck in samsara due to our karmic bonds. And you need a ritual that will cut those bindings. So in one thing I'm familiar with is they take a rope and they put your soul in the rope and then they cut it at very specific spots and then you'll be liberated at death. The idea is they've symbolically cut your bindings to the world. Now, Advaita Vedanta would say that's nonsense. That's like taking a broom and trying to sweep up the darkness. What you need is a light, and that will dispel the darkness. And the metaphors go on and on. So when one is involved in Tantra, it's not something you just do. It requires rituals of initiation. You have to join a tantric order or have a tantric guru or be born into a family of tantrikas. So you're ritually initiated at a certain point of your life. And then after that ritual, then you will be given specific mantras. You will have a new connection to a deity. In some rituals, one will dream, and the dream will be interpreted by the guru to say which deity you should be worshiping, which secret deity. And they'll be like secret forms of Ganesha or various goddesses will have secret forms that they're only worshipped in Tantra with different names. So you'll get a secret. You might even get, and many of them, you also get a new name when you're ritually initiated. If you're curious, I've never been initiated into a tantric order. Well, I did kind of join a Tibetan Buddhist group at one point, but that's beside the point. And I've never been interested in it. I'm interested in the secret lore and all, but I'm interested in it as literature and technology. I'm not interested in being stuck in a world where I have to be very careful what I tell people, because what I vowed to keep a secret. Secrecy goes up. That during those secret rituals, one is imparted with Gnosis. One is told secret teachings, whether it's ritual teachings or possibly even philosophical teachings that the guru will teach you, but only in those rituals and secret rituals. When one joins into a tantric community, one is in the family. You join a new family or a kula. You are in the kula. I know in Tibetan Buddhism, they'll say two people who are initiated at the same time, they'll call them Vajra twins. Vajra means lightning twins. Yeah, so you join a family and the guru becomes sort of like a father figure to you when you're in it, and then the other people are like your siblings. So you're really gaining another secret society. The interesting thing I find, the most interesting thing about Tantra, is it absorbs rites from other religions and from folk religions. So in reading the Tantras and reading through these rituals, you'll find rituals that aren't ever written about in the Sanskritic traditions, because these Tantra thinkers are just like, that looks interesting. Let's do that. Those Shudras are doing that. Let's do that. Oh, those Jains are doing something that looks useful. Let's do that. They'll take anything that they find useful and bring it in. They also have a ton of magic. And that's why I got into studying Tantra, was I was interested in magic. I was studying all of these rituals for bringing the dead back to life, which really intrigued me. And then I found these really hostile, nasty, mean-spirited rituals I'm going to tell you all about later. So there's a lot of magic. In fact, if you find a text that's about magic rituals, odds are it's going to be called a tantra. The genre will be tantras. What you also find is siddhis. Siddhis mean perfections or magical powers. So in a lot of tantras, they'll even talk about yoga powers, powers you gain through doing tantra yoga. And they're often, reading people's minds, being able to have knowledge of, many spheres. Think about the Vibhuti section, the magic power section in chapter 3 of the Yoga Sutras. So I like to transfer the word Tantra as a grimoire. Maybe you've heard this term grimoire. I know it has a Harry Potter type of sound about it, but grimoire comes from the French word. It's an English word. Grimoire is from the French word grammaire, as in a grammar book, and it means a book of spells. So there's something about, I know I sit with Tantra scholars and say, you can't call Tantra a grimoire. Look at all these rituals I've got for doing this and this. I'm like, well, look at these 5 texts I've got in front of me that have no wisdom, no overarching ritual schema, no discussion of interactions with deities. They're just straight up catalogs for how to literally or figuratively screw your neighbor. These things are grimoires. So I stick to the notion of a Tantra as a spell book, a secretive spell book. In the history of grimoires in the West, that's a whole other class that would be very interesting. So what specifically we're going to be looking at today are the 6 ritual results, the satkarmon. So those are 6 types of ritual acts that are of destructive magic. But I also categorize under magic rituals fantastic feats and enchanted items. This is like getting special glasses that allow you to read other languages, or a lamp that you carry, and if the flame goes up, you'll know there's a treasure underground, or boots that allow you to walk on the water. So those are fantastic feats and enchanted objects. And also deity conjuring. That's conjuring forth mostly female deities, yakshanis, yoginis, and the like, and having an interaction with them. And if they greet you as a wife, then they give you very nice food. If they greet you as a mother, then they give you fine clothes. If they greet you as your consort girlfriend, they kill all your enemies. Or if they greet you as your grandmother, you ride on their backs up to the heavens. Okay, so there's very little philosophy. This is the interesting thing to me about the texts I study, these grimoires. There is Tantra philosophy, and it's written about quite a bit these days, but it's limited to a few sources. It's not as extensive as one would think. So, like I keep saying this word magic, and magic depends on how you define it. I define magic as pragmatic ritual technologies. They are ritual techniques and ritual lore that cause pragmatic changes in the world. A transcendental change in the world would be making sure the sun rises, having your child be initiated into your family, gaining salvation. Any of these would be sort of like transcendental things. But pragmatic is like, I lost my goat. My pal down the street's a jerk. I need to make him go crazy. Just very simple things, simple changes in the world. So if a book is just made up of spells of rituals, as lots of tantras are, is it a grimoire? So if I have a text that's just filled with rituals, just all sorts of like initiation rituals, it's still a book of spells if you spell generally. So you can still call it a grimoire. At least I can. So why are we looking at the 6 acts in yoga? What we'll see is we have the term satkarmon or satkarmony, as I talk about it. That's the 6 magic results. So which range from pacification, destruction, enmity, bestowal, murder, bewildering, causing someone to love you, forcible attraction. There's a bunch more. Now, also, you have the word 6 action, satkarmon, that we've seen before. In fact, we saw just recently under hathayoga, which were the 6 preliminaries of dauti and neti and whatnot. So those satkarmon, and this is funny because I'll often, when I'm talking to yoga people, I'll say, I study the satkarmony, and they'll start talking about, I don't know, vomiting water or whatnot. I'm like, oh, these are different. So it's intriguing to find that I'll have people that are interested in yoga will be interested in my work and like, this isn't like the satkarmony I know. I'm like, yeah, because they're completely different. It's just called the 6 results or the 6 actions. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of them. We also have specific prohibitions in yoga texts against magic. And then finally, the really interesting thing to me is we talked about at the beginning of the class how the word yoga can mean so many different things. Well, in fact, we see that magic is called a yoga or yoga. So in the Is Tantra, edited by Shamsundarlal Tripathi, page 1, verse 185, there's a long immobilization rite that I'll talk about in the other video. And it says, this is declared in the Siddhi yoga. So it's classified as being perfected yoga, this ritual to immobilize a person. Or here's another one by the Is Tantra, edited by Mishra. Listen up, Ravana. Oh, yes. It is God telling the stories to Ravana, the bad guy from the Ramayana, and he's learning about all this magic. Listen up, Ravana. Now I will explain the method, yoga, for bestowing enmity in its most fantastic form. There we go. So a method for causing people to hate each other is called a yoga. Talk about a V-yoga. Finally, should he perform this endeavor, this yoga, at midnight, he will even kill a victim equal to Indra. And that's about marana, or murder rituals, in Tripati's Is Tantra again. Finally, we looked at this text called the Amanaska, and I know Jason Birch edited this, and he was the one that first told me about this section. The Amanaska actually does present the 6 magic rituals and says, don't do them. Generally, this is a verse that is about not doing painful yogas or yogas that take a lot of effort, because it's a Raja yoga system that stresses stresses mental yogas that don't involve a lot of physical exertions or effort or pain. So this is the translation by Mallinson and Singleton from Roots of Yoga. So Amanaska 1.7, note, I say the title of the text and give the verse number before giving the quote. The magical practices such as sowing enmity, driving away enemies and killing, and the use of mantras to bring about a proliferation of the multiplicity of phenomena are prohibited, which should be provided there. And that's found in Mallinson and Singleton. Okay, so in this magical system, the magic rituals I'm talking about, they're negative. There is not positive magic here. So I've also had, I've had actually contemporary occultists say, I want to learn about Indian magic. I'm like, no, you don't. You really don't. And they're like, yes, I do, yes, I do, yes, I do. And so I start telling them, I'm like, well, isn't there something that will make me really powerful and something that doesn't involve hurting other people? And I tell them, no, most of this magic is about hurting other people. So it's aggressive. It has regressive ends and results. And the substances it uses are noxious. They're acrid. They're impure. You're using like bones and mustard oil and all sorts of kind of gnarly substances. So don't try to reinterpret these in a positive manner. They are straight up as negative as they seem. There is next to no ethics of magic. I found a few select verses here and there that say the reason one should do magic is to usurp the money and the family of another person. So why do you do magic? Why do you do magic? To kill someone or drive them away or make them crazy? You drive them to take their money, take their social position, and take their wife and kids. And it's usually dudes we're talking about here. I have found some instances of women performing magic, but it's usually to sexually subjugate a man. Okay, why study magic? Magic teaches us about daily lives and social tensions. I can read Kumarasambhava all I want, and I can read the Ramayana all I want, but I don't really get to know about why people were angry at each other, what they were doing in their daily lives. Like, I learned so much from doing this paper I was writing on destruction rituals about how fishermen preserved their fish, because there were all these rituals for destroying pots and heating up water and making nets fall apart. So from looking at the magical things that are deployed, you can learn about the lives of the people who are deploying magic or the victims of magic. You also learn that life was tense, especially when you're afraid somebody's using sorcery with you all the time. Now, this is also not witchcraft. Witchcraft is another thing. Witchcraft is a generally inadvertent notion that witches are out there who, out of hatred, will go and destroy people due to their psychic powers, their evil eyes, and whatnot. Now, this is not witchcraft. This is specific sorcerers doing specific things for specific ends. There's a lot more to go into on that. That's a whole other class. So the vast majority of texts that I've encountered that contain these magical contents are called tantras. So another reason to group them under tantra. Now, the other thing I found is we have this term in pretty much all the Indian languages where they just say tantra mantra. And tantra mantra means doing mantras and magical rituals to make something happen. It's considered negative. Also, I only speak Hindi, but I'll speak in English with people and translate. And I've noticed that when people are speaking Tamil, Bengali, Odia, and Hindi, I have heard all 4 language groups. When I'm talking to someone through a translator, they'll use the English words black magic for what I'm studying. So in fact, the term black magic in English really well refers to this, considering the fact that so many South Asians will use that English term when describing it in casual conversation. So now I want you to go learn about some magic rituals. You can also compare how long my beard is now to how long it was back then. Okay, do your homework. I'll talk to you later. Catch you on the flip side.